Hey guys, my name is Braden, and today I'll be showing you how to put rubber shrink tube grips on your custom fishing rod. Now, let me show you what tools you'll need for this. First, you're going to need some paracord. This can be paracord of any kind, marine grade or not marine grade. I recommend it be marine grade, but whatever you like. Next, you're going to need your shrink tube. This can be in any size. I don't have a preference, I just choose whatever fits the blank. That fits over the butt cap. Sorry, there's a little bit of extra room. And you're also going to need a lighter. This can be any lighter you want as long as it's a lighter. And this is optional, this is hot glue. It helps to secure your paracord to the blank at the start. You don't need to, there's other ways you can do it, I'll show you how. But if you want it to be more aesthetically pleasing, I guess you could say, you're gonna want the hot glue. So first we're gonna take our paracord. And there's a bunch of ways that you can wrap this on your blank. There's lots of different ways you can do it online, but I'll show you two that I like. So first I'm going to heat up my hot glue using my lighter. I just put the end in it until it starts to get droopy. Then apply it to the blank where I want to secure it. Now you can get rid of your hot glue and take your paracord end and put it right up against your butt cap, right in the hot glue. Now hold it for a couple seconds so it can dry. Alright, so now that that has dried, we can take our paracord and wrap in a X pattern. You can do this as close as you like or as far apart as you like. I'm just eyeballing it. If you really want to get it down, you can take a China chalk marker or a piece of tape and just put a little mark down on the blank and measure out each distance. But I am just eyeballing it because this is not the one that I am going to do. So now you're just going to want to line up your X's in an even line. This isn't going to be very even because I didn't measure it out, but again, this is not the one I'm going to do. And then there you have just a simple X. Now, you can add more X's or you can make there be less X's by spacing them apart more. Whatever you like, this is all about your preference. I'm going to take my paracord and I'm going to wrap in a cylinder going all the way up to my reel seat. I'm keeping a little bit of tension, but not too much that I'm stretching the paracord because you don't want to stretch the paracord. If you stretch the paracord, it's going to be taller and shorter in different areas, and it won't be even when you do the shrink tube. So now I've made it to the end. I'm going to tie my paracord down and wedge it in between the other paracord at this very end. This will help with longevity of your grip. And now I'm going to start wrapping, making a 4-axis. Now I'm going to spread out my paracord quite a bit, about like 2 inches or so. And once I make it to the end, I'm going to center my X's on the bottom and top of my reel seat. Once I've done so, I can take my paracord and I can wrap in between my other X's. And then I can wrap in between the other side of the X's as well. And now that I'm at the end here, I can just glue my paracord down. Now I need to trim it just a little bit. And I will apply some hot glue to the end, and then I'll secure it down. And don't be afraid to apply a lot. And if strands get everywhere, it's perfectly fine. It's hot glue, it should come off really easily. So now I'm just going to go around my X's and make sure that all of them are straight. And if they aren't, we can wiggle around the paracord a little bit to make sure they are. Alright, so now that I'm happy with how it looks, we can take one more precautionary measure to make sure that when we put the heat shrink tubing on, none of the X's wiggle around. We can take any super glue, a rubber super glue, and apply right beneath or underneath or around the side of the X. This ensures that the X's do not wiggle or move around with your heat shrink tubing, because that's the main issue I've had. Because sometimes the heat shrink tubing is really tight, so sometimes when you're pulling it on, it wiggles around the X's. You can also use hot glue for this as well. Alright, so now I've gone around and I've secured all of my X's using that super glue. We can now take our shrink tubing. Now you're going to want to choose the right size. You do not want it to be too tight, but you also do not want it to be too large, because remember, it can only shrink so much. So if it's a whole inch larger, you should probably go with a different size tubing. So now we're going to trim this to size. When we trim it to size, we want to make sure we're a little bit larger on each end, because it shrinks in all directions. So it's not going to expand, it's going to contract. So we need to make sure each end is a little bit larger. I personally like to cut it using chicken wire cutters. If you don't have chicken wire cutters, you can also use a razor blade. Just put it on a flat surface. You just want to maintain a straight, flat edge. So now we have our shrink tube cut on flat ends. We want to pinch this seam line, because the way they package it very flat. So we want to make it round. So we're just going to pinch those ends. just to widen it up a bit. We can now take it and put it over our butt. Now I did make it a little bit too big, so I'm just going to trim an inch off until I reach the right place. And instead of a lighter to shrink this, I'm actually going to use a burner. Now my fuel is denatured alcohol, so it burns very clean with little to no smoke. So this will help to ensure that our shrink tube has 0 faults. Now, the seam line, because of how flat they usually package it, we are going to be left with a tiny bit of a line that we can see. So we're going to want to position this on the sides of our blank, so that way it helps us to just not really see it. Now you can work left to right or right to left. I personally like to shrink the ends a little bit so I can size it correctly and then go from there. So now I've gotten that side shrunken down a little bit, I'm going to shrink the other side a little bit as well. And don't hang around in a spot because you will actually burn the rubber. You want to apply heat slowly and evenly, or else you will be left with spots that are tighter than others and even burnt rubber. You can also use a hairdryer. It's a lot slower, but it does work. It takes a long time. I haven't tried a heat gun, but it might work. So looking how it's shrinking, I don't want to lose much, if any, of my real seat. So I'm just going to slowly tighten up on my real seat and position it perfectly so I lose little to no real seat. And that is how you make rubber shrink tube grips. You can do the same thing for a foregrip as well, just obviously on a shorter scale. And if you really want, you could take multiple paracords and build it up so it's tapered like a foregrip. So take a very thin paracord, wrap your blank, then do a thicker paracord but only over a back part. And continue like that and you can actually get a tapered grip. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could do me a favor and like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.